episode of Rendezvous with Anzar Saqib on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C levels across Pakistan and the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy. Every time we've got some very special guests with us, domain leaders, thought leaders, experts, and the movers and shakers of the corporate industry. These are people who have essentially spent considerable amount of time in the fields that they're in. Today, we've got the Chief Digital Officer, the CDO of Karandaaz, Mr. Rehan Akhtar with us. Rehan Saab, thank you so much for joining.
No, thank you very much for inviting me. And it's such a nice weather outside, so, looking forward to our
actually,
discussion.
we're both in Islamabad. Bilkul. We're both based in Islamabad right now, and trust me, it's a one-of-a-kind weather situation right now. Rehan Saab, what I would like to know is that when one goes through your LinkedIn or your public profiles, we see that, mashallah, you've had a lot of achievements. However, I want to know where your journey began. Where did you go to school? How did you end up where you are at right now?
So in fact, Steve Jobs basically says that if you look forward, you really can't, plan your path, but when you look backwards, so some of the choices that you have made for yourself, they emerge as a path. I started my schooling in Bhavalpur. My father, Sadiq Public School, ji, bilkul. So I studied there till my FSC. Then, as I think what happens in most of the families, it was either becoming a doctor or an engineer. So I belong to a doctor family, so I was the odd man out. So I sort of, put my foot down and became an engineer. So I joined University of Engineering and Technology, Lahore, and I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And then I started my job in a company called Pell, ye jo fridge वगैरह बनाते हैं. So I was part of the R&D department. But soon I realized that manufacturing was not my cup of tea. So I went for my MBA from LUMS. And after completing my MBA, I started my job in Caltex in sales. Mm-hmm. So, and I spent, good about 4 years in sales. So, mera ye khayal hai ki wo gradually, whatever education that you get and whatever experiences that you get, it kind of adds to your skill set, it adds to your personality. So when I was as an engineer, when I was working in Pell, wahan pe really understanding of working with people of different sort of levels, that was very important. Because our workers ke saath kaam kar rahe hain, foreman ke saath kaam kar rahe hain, and you're working with machines actually, and there's it's a very organized kind of manufacturing facility. When I started working in sales, so wahan pe you have to work with people, you have to sell it to them, and a very different sort of skill that you have to sort of use. So within then Caltex, I moved from Lahore to Karachi after a few years, and I shifted to the hardcore planning and marketing function. After spending about another 3-4 years, so after about 8 years in oil sector, I then shifted to Telenor. So us zamane mein 2005 mein Telenor started operations, and they were looking for people with diverse background. So I joined Telenor in 2006. This is quite early. I think 1 saal hua tha unko operation start kiye hue. And I spent about a decade there. And within Telenor, I joined in marketing, but then, I grew, and Telenor, I think, was also one of the companies which have a very big impact on my personality and my sort of career, because they believed in, developing people for sort of future challenges. So, they also helped me grow. And within Telenor, I took up a lot of interesting, challenging assignments. And within that assignment, one of the assignment was leading transformational change. Telenor itself was going through a transformational change because the telecom business model that's changing, as you know, and digital is eating up into their revenues, and they wanted to, do something differently. So I was part of that team, and in some instances I was also leading that team. So 2016 mein phir I got this opportunity in Karandaaz. So Karandaaz was although set up in 2015, and they were looking for a team, an early sort of team, to come and join the cause. And wahan pe, I knew somebody who had worked in my team before. So I think just reciprocating maybe the kindness, he approached me and introduced me to the opportunity. I looked at the composition of the board, and the management which was there, and it was quite impressive. And the challenge and the mission also resonated sort of with me. And that's where I decided that I think for now I'm done with the private sector, and I need to move to the not-for-profit sector and be more mission-oriented rather than profit-oriented. And I made that switch. So for good 18, 19 years, I had worked in profit centers and for-profit organizations. And then for the last about 4 years now, in fact, 4.5 years now, I have been working with not-for-profit. It is a not-for-profit, but then again, the job is very satisfying because we're trying to change the ecosystem, the digital financial ecosystem in the country. And I think वो पिछले 18-19 साल में जो भी मैंने सीखा in terms of how to initiate a change, how to sustain a change, how to influence people in terms of, जो भी sales में भी जो techniques सीखी थी, of how to negotiate and etc. So अब इस platform के ऊपर it's very interesting to use some of those techniques and some of those skills. So I think I've been lucky to have mentors in my sort of life, who have guided me, and I think also taken some bold steps.
Absolutely, it's been very, very inspiring, and one of the interesting things is that आपका कितना ज़्यादा exposure है from sales to digital to digital transformation to now finance and banking, and and even now. So Rehan sahab, what I would like to now ask you is, आपने बात की innovative ideas की or digital transformations की. How would you define innovation, and what innovation are we lacking, or what steps are we lacking in Pakistan's digital financial ecosystem?
So I think innovation can be defined in many different ways. And a key difference is that there's a difference between invention and innovation. In business sort of environment where we sort of operating in the context that we're talking about, so we're not looking for a discovery in science or a new theory. Basically, what we're doing is, essentially, so there's a supply and there's a demand. And if you put any service in between, and in this area, if you put banking services in between, what should eventually happen is that the supply should actually meet the demand. और पाकिस्तान में हो ये रहा है कि जो banking sector है, they basically are happy serving a limited segment of the society. In multiple surveys, different numbers come up. But in some demand-side surveys, it has been quoted about 21% of Pakistanis actually have, access to formal banking mechanisms, which basically means that जो बाकी about 80% हैं, उनके पास there is no access to formal finance. So they have access to finance. So वो friends and families हैं, वो loan sharks हैं, वो और कोई informal means हो सकते हैं. And for a country like Pakistan, or for that matter, any country, if you have such a big informal sort of economy, because business goes on, people have, दुकान है, कोई काम है, कुछ भी है. So the money is circulating, but there's a huge pile which is, in cash. So what has happened is that the banking infrastructure or financial infrastructure in its current shape and form is unable to meet the requirements for the people, which are represented by those 80%. और इसमें जो innovation की ज़रूरत है, वो innovation, I think, in all aspects. Number one, we need better policies and better regulations so that new sectors can actually emerge. So government usually जो सपोर्ट करती है, सपोर्ट कर सकती है, वो इस तरह से कर सकती है कि प्रो इन्वेस्टर फ्रेंडली कंडीशंस पैदा करे जिसमें फिर कंपनीज कैन कम इन एंड दे कैन सॉर्ट ऑफ क्रिएट बिजनेस मॉडल्स. उसमें इनोवेशन की जरूरत है. We can't have 1970 की पॉलिसी and apply it now. दूसरा फिर जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर के जो बैंक्स हैं या जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, फिनटेक्स हैं, what they need to do is they need to immerse themselves and they need to figure out who is the target customer that they're targeting, and they need to create their own niche. Yeah. So उस niche के पीछे so उस niche के पीछे जो है फिर they should create the value proposition, they should create all the business, etc. etc. और इस वक्त वो ये रहा है कि everybody is focused on that 20% जो already banked है. इसलिए आपको जो क्रेडिट कार्ड के लिए भी जो आता है बंदा वो उधर ही आता है जब उसके पास एक क्रेडिट कार्ड इशू हो चुका है. So multiple cards are being issued. So उसकी जो penetration है into the society of financial inclusion, वो that is not sort of happening. So the innovation has to come into the business model. There has to be a new way of banking. Or technology enables it, mobiles enables it. और ये बड़ी बात होती है कि पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त we have almost all the ingredients, but still, the fire is not sort of, getting started. So what do we do to spark that fire and get that momentum, going? It's very heartening to see कि in some sectors जैसे Uber, Careem, ride-hailing के अंदर there's a lot of companies that have come in. E-commerce के अंदर there are a lot of companies that are coming in, and in fact foreign investors are also coming in. So I think now it is time, and we have started to see the ice kind of melting and thawing. There are now motivated players who are dedicated for new use cases, who are coming. So I think for me, innovation in this ecosystem means both the government and the regulators coming together and the private sector coming together and creating, an environment where, innovation जिस तरह वो कहते हैं ना सरपरस्ती हो सके और नए आइडियाज और नए बिजनेसेस जो हैं वो इमर्ज कर सकें पाकिस्तान में. इस वक्त this was a kind of frozen environment for last quite so many years, but there is a change which is happening right now.
Right, absolutely. And आपने बड़ी pertinent points raise किए हैं that a lot of our economy still is working on cash. और हमने पूरी दुनिया में notice किया है. Rehan साहब, I was even visiting some of the Central Asian countries. Lately Kyrgyzstan जो delegation थी Prime Minister की. So even though they have had their independence way after ours, there's a lot of buzz around QR payments है, phone scans हो रहे हैं, digital payment gateway systems हैं, digital ecosystem मौजूद है. And I believe this is where Pakistan really needs to put their thoughts and energies, and I'm so glad we have people like yourself that are at the forefront of things. But one of the important things that we need to note at this point in time, जो कि हमें भी CxO Global होते हुए concern होता है, is that we still need to work on our industry academia linkages, our public-private partnerships. So sir, मुझे बताइए from the perspective of financial inclusion, how important do you think these initiatives are and how can they be utilized?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, Anza, जो आपने raise किया है. Mohammed, this is something that's greatly missing. जो linkages हैं इस वक्त from policy makers to industry and industry to the public sector and academia, that's largely, especially academia की तो कोई inclusion इसमें नहीं है. There are very few people. I think वो individual professors हो सकते हैं जिनका अपना interest इसके अंदर हो. So universities by and large are focused on tech, and by the way, fintech is one part is tech. You train people how to code, and you train people how to create software. लेकिन किस customer के लिए बनाना है? So I think पाकिस्तान में भी जो tech है इस वक्त वो is more focused on, it's more focused on maybe entertainment, those kind of sort of platforms. लेकिन अगर आपने एक financial app बनानी है और उसमें financial मसला किसी customer का हल करना है, उसके लिए जो बड़ी चीज इंपॉर्टेंट है वो ये है कि यूनिवर्सिटीज को इसमें स्टेप इन करना चाहिए. अपने रिसर्च सेंटर्स जो हैं उसमें उनको डेडिकेट करना चाहिए. कोई स्टूडेंट्स जो वहां से हु आर देन द फ्यूचर लीडर्स, उनके बिजनेस केसेस या उनके करिकुलम में कोई ऐसी चीज होनी चाहिए कि अगर आपने एक इनोवेशन लेके आनी है इनटू अ सेक्टर, सो हाउ डू यू सॉर्ट ऑफ इनोवेट। तो आई थिंक उस चीज में डेफिनेटली ये हो सकता है। फिर इंडस्ट्री को भी थोड़ा सा दिल बड़ा करने की जरूरत है कि वो again, when you figure out a money making formula, you want to keep it to yourself and maximize profit. That's how capital world works, and that's perfectly fine. But then again, just like in many different parts of the world, you outsource research, and you outsource research to universities because you want to build that capacity in the university as well कि कल को उसमें से MBAs या PhDs या जो भी उसमें वो निकलेंगे, they will actually understand the real life problem. ऐसा नहीं है कि आप MBA करके निकलें और पहली नौकरी में you are trying to figure out कि ये कंपनी काम कैसे करती है, because the academic is very different and the industry is sort of very different. So I think वो connection जो है वो बहुत बहुत जरूरी है. We have tried from Karandaaz platform to create some kind of linkages as well, but we alone do not have the muscle or the ability to pull that off. इसमें definitely even the government universities and private universities, academia should come in, and I think हमारे professors को भी इस एरिया की तरफ देखना चाहिए. This is a multi-billion industry which is going through the process of birth. In many different countries now we have fintechs which are even bigger than the banks. So Pakistan is just a matter of time, and I think and academics or academia should definitely become part of it, and the role is both with the private sector and the universities together to sort of link with each other.
These are some of the initiatives that we are very dedicatedly working on at CxO Global to incorporate the industry and the academia. We will be, requesting you to mentor some of the student-centric sessions as well, because I believe बहुत ज़्यादा innovation हो सकती है. We don't encourage the academia to think out of the box, because just like आपने बहुत candid तरीके से point out किया, when someone finds a secret to success, वो उसको share नहीं करना चाहते. So यहाँ पे बात आती है startups की. We do know that there is a lot of young population in Pakistan. There's a lot of people that are going towards the startup culture, especially post-pandemic. But very few people are entering the startup ecosystem, keeping financial models in mind, या इस तरह के कोई payment gateway, payment solutions के लिए. We do know we have a few members of ours at CxO who are working on such solutions. What would your advice be for them? उनके क्या challenges हैं? What things do they need to keep in mind before entering the market?
इसमें एक स्टीव जॉब का कोट है which I read from internet. I don't know if he has said it or not, but even if he did not say it, I think it makes all sense. But if he said it, it adds to the credibility. And it kind of says that you need to start with the customer in mind. And you start with customer and what experience you want to give, and then build the technology accordingly. I think a big mistake that I see in a lot of fintech startup is that they jump to technology and then they're like figuring out कि अब customer क्यों उसको adopt जो है वो नहीं कर रहा है. So I think what needs to happen is, and this is not about just fintech, in any business, and I think that's what all these successful businesses are capable of. And if you deep down आप कहीं पे जाके उनकी story देखें, so everybody starts with a very small problem that they are solving. और मेरा ये ख्याल है कि जब मैं एंटरप्रेन्योर से बात करता हूँ और स्टार्टअप में किसी फाउंडर से बात करता हूँ, मुझे दो चीजें उनमें नजर आती हैं which I think they can improve on, in my humble opinion. I'm not an entrepreneur myself, so they can take this feedback with a pinch of salt. एक तो ये है कि do not get married to the idea that you woke up with.
Okay.
Well, you might be the smartest person, but as they say, if you want to go long, go slow. If you want to go fast, you will not go long. If you want to take more people along, you go slow. So उसमें जो process है of experimenting, of pivoting, of improving, even letting go of your original idea and pivoting to an idea which actually solves the customer issue. I find that while there are many people, many founders who are committed to it, but there are a lot of people who feel that जो उनको ब्रेन वेव आई थी और जो अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने देखी थी, that's still valid and they still sort of keep pushing for it. I think they must sort of be prudent in accepting when to pivot and when to sort of move on. The other one is, which I have mentioned, a lot of time when I hear people talking about their startups, and we also fund some of the startups as well. So they want to impress with the technology that they have. आजकल के दौर में technology is the least thing. You can hire services through cloud, and you can outsource technology, etc., etc. What you need is that chief technology officer or architect or digital का बंदा या जो भी this भी shape and form में आपको मिलता है, who can actually translate the benefit of the technology for a customer, where you are able to create a customer, where the customer is willing to pay you some money for using that service, and then is willing to repeat that sort of order. जो एक typical business simple सा कोई भी अगर आप शुरू कर लें, तो उस हिसाब से वो कई दफा मुझे ये लगता है कि some of these entrepreneurs are too much technology obsessed and technology focused, and they feel good that they have the latest technology. I think latest technology.
What good is that technology? Bilkul. Gee, what good is that technology if it doesn't come, with the technical know-how of things? और जैसे आपने KYC की बात की, रेहान साहब, I would like to थोड़ा सा इस conversation को diversify करेंगे, because I have a question from some of the audience members, and they said that so even though we have the technological means, how can someone who's not from the financial sector get into the R&D side of things? क्योंकि हमारे पास कोई case studies मौजूद नहीं है, which is rightly said. We barely have any case studies to look into. बाहर तो ये होता है कि आपको you can, if you're starting somewhere, you can actually PayPal की case study मौजूद है, काफी सारे dynamics हैं, Zoom का पता चलता है, we know about Stripe and all these things. हमारे पास बहुत models हैं. So if someone who is not from a financial background wants to step into this framework, what would your advice be to them in particular?
Yeah, so एक तो ये है कि for example, Karandaaz has a big library of researches, and we've put together publications as well. The ones that we have authored in this area, even otherwise other people have authored, and we cross-reference this. So I would recommend them to visit our website and explore our knowledge section, और वहाँ पे just publications हैं उनको आप देखें. You can also engage with us, if you're interested to explore this area, and we can have a chat. There are also now community forums which are developing. So, for example, there's this FinTech Association which has been created, and you could tap into that. वहाँ पे like-minded लोग हैं जो कि who are running those businesses or are already solving some of the problems. And the whole sort of objective of such association and communities is for people who are entrants, if they want some information about the sector, they should be able to sort of give that as well. फिर इसके अलावा अगर आप SECP को approach करें, so they basically have a sandbox that they have created, जिसमें if you have an idea or a business, so you could participate when it comes to insurance या crowdfunding या इस तरह के जो initiatives हैं. स्टेट बैंक ने अभी तक सैंडबॉक्स तो नहीं इनिशिएट किया है, but then those are also sort of formal sort of banking companies की तरफ आप चले जाते हैं. So I don't think fintechs will be focusing on that. मेरा अपना ख्याल है कि for startup fintechs more relevant area is something जो SECP ऑफर करता है, जिसमें इंश्योरेंस आ जाती है, जिसमें lending platforms आ जाते हैं या P2P networks, etc. उसमें वो आ जाते हैं. But even otherwise, do reach out to Karandaaz. I can share.
That's very kind.
On which people can reach out, and you can post it in your sort of
So that's very, very generous of you, and definitely we need such mentorship and such guidance, or even such knowledge sharing for that matter. It's very important. So what's in store for Karandaaz next? एक तो हमें थोड़ा बहुत ये पता है कि from our research that we are looking into the digital payment gateway system for the state bank, रास्त जो है uske ilawa, what are the new initiatives that you're working on? What happens next?
Sure. So एक तो ये गेटवे जो है वो बन गया है और शुरू हो गया है. Now there's this whole adoption phase, which basically can be divided into two sort of phases. One, rolling out more use cases. So there are more use cases जो कि RAS के platform से roll out होंगे, and then the adoption of it. So while we have the banks onboarded, we need to onboard fintechs as well. Then we need to motivate, consumers as well. So we'll work very closely with, we'll continue working very closely with State Bank to develop an, adoption plan and to help them sort of execute that, adoption plan. इसके अलावा हम, maybe I'll take a moment, a minute or two to explain हम करंदाज डिजिटल में और क्या करते हैं.
Right.
So हम basically we divided into 4-5 different work streams. हमारी जो पहली work stream है जिसमें हम वो identify key infrastructure जो कि enable कर सकता है payments को, financial services को, और अगर वो missing हो तो we help develop that. RAS is something that we have developed under that work stream. The other work that we do is we go in and we work with key public institutions that basically interact with millions of customers. तो हम इस वक्त सपोर्ट दे रहे हैं, टेक्निकल असिस्टेंस दे रहे हैं टू वेरियस इनकम सपोर्ट प्रोग्राम, SECP, नेशनल सेविंग, जहाँ पे वो they can basically accelerate their journey of digitization of some of their processes or some of their interfaces. So for example, national saving के अंदर hopefully in a month or so you'll see that the खातेदार जो हैं उनको एक ATM card जो है वो issue होगा. So instead of coming to the national saving center, they can actually walk into the ATM and withdraw the funds or profits जो हैं वो directly इस तरह से वो कर सकते हैं. And then there's other plans as well. So one is the infrastructure, the other one is the public sector, the third one is the private sector. और private sector के अंदर basically we have a very diverse program. इसमें we kind of help capacity building as well, but we also then do projects. और इसमें our projects are range from supporting fintechs, giving them seed funding. This is something that we do through challenge rounds. We also then develop specific projects with entities, which we do, and there are some projects that we're doing with different entities. Thirdly, what we do is, we also focus on experiments. So, these experiments are areas जिसके अंदर we can do a very quick test. So, अगर किसी बैंक को या किसी entity को ये चीज़ देखनी है कि if they lower the price, what is the response? And, they're sort of unable to take that risk or changing a product feature. So, we come in and we work with these institutions and we fund these.
Right, absolutely.
और इसके अलावा then we also have dedicated research wing who creates knowledge and research which is then publicly available, which I talked about earlier as well. We also work with the regulators to help them design pro-financial inclusion regulations and policies. And underneath all of this, which is a cross-cutting theme, is the women financial inclusion. So everything that we do. Yeah, so we make sure that women financial inclusion is something that we also sort of work in. So we're working with all these sort of sectors. So I can't pinpoint a big thing that is coming, but what we're hoping is, and we have been working, in Pakistan for the last 5 years now. So we're hoping, जैसे आपको RAS जो है वो उसका एक output नजर आया है. So there are a lot of other programs जिसका आपको output जो है वो आहिस्ता-आहिस्ता जो है वो नजर आना शुरू होगा. And what we're hoping is, financial inclusion in Pakistan में जो है, starts increasing because of all of these initiatives that we are taking.
Right. Rehan Saab, unfortunately, we've come towards the end of our session, and we will, on an ending note, ask you, how has being a part of CxO Global Forum affected your personal or professional life?
I think it's a very good initiative. I remember जब कमल ने मुझे पहली दफा अप्रोच किया था, so I was very skeptical. I said that there's so many other forums, and is it worth it or not? But thumbs up to Kamal to keep pushing, and he finally got me on the forum, and then I realized I should have joined the forum earlier. I think it's a very important group. whenever I have exchanged ideas, I have received very good feedback. Whenever I have requested for any support, people have come forward, and I really enjoy being a part of this. And my only sort of reflection is I should have joined this earlier.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for the endorsement. And indeed, it's the sharing of knowledge and ideas that makes CxO Global Forum so unique. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Rehan Saab, for joining us today and for taking out time. We appreciate all the work that you're doing, and we request you to keep contributing to our knowledge as well. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn more about Karandaaz, Rehan Saab will be sharing the website with you. If you want to learn more about him, you can log on to LinkedIn and search for him. As for us, to learn more about the forum and how you can become a member, it's cxoforum.global. And we look forward to your feedback and your comments. Thank you. Until next time, Khudafis.
Thank you.